What is going on, guys? Welcome to Greggles TV. This is a fun video we got going on for you. I have Shane Craig on. He's got his own YouTube channel. Shane, what's the name of your channel? I know you kind of, I don't know, I'm not sure if you go by your name or if you go by Scary, if literal. What do you go by?
I go by my name. You can call me Shane Craig, call me Shane, that's fine. Scary if literal is kind of a weird name. It's got a long sort of inside joke history that has nothing to do with anything at this point, so you can kind of ignore that. You can just call me Shane, but if you search for Shane Craig or Scary if literal, you're gonna find me.
Perfect. Well, I brought Shane on because he's been covering the Surface Duo for as long as, when it first started coming out, and he's covered it ever since. I covered it, in the beginning, and then I kind of let it drop off, and then I did a couple of videos, towards the last couple of weeks. But he's been covering it basically since its inception. So I wanted to bring him on, and in this video, we're gonna do 3 negatives about this phone, things that we think that aren't so great. And then on the flip side, I'm going to put his video down below where we talk about the 3 positives. So with that said, let's start off with our first negative. I'll go first. So for me, the Surface Duo 2, which is just announced, is a big improvement overall to the phone. Like it's more positives than negatives, but there are some negatives. So one of the negatives for me is the price. The price point starts off at $14.99, jumps to $15.99 if you go to the 256, and then if I remember correctly, it's $17.99 if you can even get the 512 gigabyte version. So for me, price is a huge thing on this. It's so high that most people, even if they were interested, I don't think they're going to buy it, which is a shame because it's an interesting device. But price is a huge thing, and it's just a little bit out of the realm of most people buying it. Now, what's your number one, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, price is such an obvious one that you would have hoped that they could have done something to get the price down, but realistically, it just was not going to be in the cards for what they've added to this device with stuff we'll maybe talk about on the positive side of things. Yeah, that high price is definitely a big problem. I think for me, the number one thing that is a negative is more of a potential negative, right? It's not something that we know 100% yet. We're seeing some early reports, maybe we can speculate a little bit, but it's the same thing that plagued the original Surface Duo tremendously through its life cycle, and that would be the software. We need to know more about the software. The fact that they didn't even really talk about the software. They just kind of, rolled through this announcement really quickly, showed it off a little bit, and didn't really say anything. To me, not nearly enough to sort of quelch the concerns that people have, rightfully so, about software on Surface Duo.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And that's going to lead me into my second one because it's updates. Software was a bit of a problem on the Surface Duo 1, bugginess, and updates obviously as well. You didn't really get updates. So for me, number 2 is the software updates. They have to support this device. We have to hear some kind of verbal announcement like you do from Samsung now. Samsung is like, oh, we'll give you 3 to 5 years of updates. Apple says something very similar. Microsoft needs to take that step and say, we're going to support this device for at least 3 years, or maybe even 2 years. But 3 years, I think, is a nice place to be. So I would love for Microsoft to come out and say, we're going to give you 3 years of regular updates, not one update a year, or these incremental updates do nothing. And sometimes they cause issues. So what's your number 2?
Yeah, that's a great one too. And by the way, they did say that 3 years of updates on Surface Duo 1. They've said nothing of the sort on Surface Duo 2. Take that for, however you want to take that, take it. You probably know how I'm taking it. As for my number 2, I wish that I had seen some updates in terms of the fragility of the hardware, right? So we're getting Corning Victus Glass, Corning, it's Victus. It's Gorilla Glass Victus. Is that the proper term? We're getting Victus on the internal glass, but on the external, it's the same Gorilla Glass 5 that we got last time, which you can see my Duo over my shoulder here. It does have a hairline crackdown. It is the only phone, literally the only phone I've ever dropped and broken in my entire life. I don't drop my phones. I don't break my phones, but that one did get broken. And then in addition to that, we didn't get much in terms of, let's talk about the fact that the USB-C port cracked on so many of these things. Can we get some information about what did we do to address that? Fragility is a concern for these devices. And again, it's been nothing. We've been told nothing. The glass is the same glass. Why do we not think this thing's going to be just as fragile as last time?
That's a fantastic point. And it's a great one to add to negatives, because when you buy these expensive phones, you expect it, sometimes even though it's the most expensive, sometimes it's not the best made in terms of how rugged it is. But with that said, I'm going to add a third one in here. My third one is the price is really high. And it's so high that it gets to a point where, you want to see things added into it, such as a charger and the bumper case. They had the bumper case and a charger, I believe, last year, if I remember correctly, in the box. They don't this year. I'll be honest, I can live without the charger, but a device like this needs a case. And this isn't like an iPhone. This isn't like, you can go to Best Buy, or maybe you can, but you can't go to any store and buy a case for this phone. So the accessory market is very small for this type of device. It would have been amazing and very helpful and kind of Microsoft to throw in a case. So that's definitely my number 3, is not having the bumper case, not having the charger, aka the accessories inside the box. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good one as well. And it kind of is confusing to me, because not having the bumper in there might even kind of indicate that they think it doesn't need the bumper this time. I'd love to know why they wouldn't think that. What's going on to make them think that's okay. So my last one is one that isn't necessarily a big deal to me, but it's something that I'm not looking forward to. So with the first Duo, it ran with 6 gigs of RAM. And of course, everybody on the internet, as people on the internet tend to do, I don't want to shock anybody here, but sometimes people on the internet overreact a little bit. And they all freaked out about 6 gigs of RAM was wildly inefficient, or insufficient rather. And I made a couple of videos explaining, what's the average RAM usage of an app? How many apps can you run on Duo before the RAM is, exceeded and you start losing things out of RAM? I ran PUBG Mobile twice at the same time to demonstrate how powerful the device was, whatever. Surface Duo 2 only has 8 gigs of RAM. They only bumped it up by 2. And when you have devices like the Z Folds with 12 gigs of RAM, that's kind of the standard now for these super high-end phones, 10, 12 gigs of RAM. While I don't think it's going to impact performance in a dramatic way, when you're talking about a device that's $1,500, I'm going to spend the next year talking about 8 gigs of RAM, and they could have saved me from that fate if they had just put 10 or 12 gigs of RAM in a device that, honestly, at that price, you should have all the bells and whistles.
Definitely. And that leads me into these. I didn't add these ones in as negatives. I mean, they're kind of like just things to think about. And one of them was the performance, the RAM thing, because you do expect a device this price to, like Shane said, to have 12 gigabytes of RAM, if not more. And then the other one is not a huge deal to me, but no wireless charging. It has NFC, so you can do digital payments and stuff, but no wireless charging. Not a huge deal to me, like I said, but it is something I think some people would be turned off. Do you have anything else you wanted to add that maybe isn't like a huge turnoff, but maybe a slight turnoff?
Honestly, I feel like they ticked most of the boxes that they needed to tick, and I feel like most of what they've done that's a negative to me now has more to do with lack of communication potentially than anything else. I think that's about all. I think we've covered pretty much everything that I would look at as being a major negative on Surface Duo, the price being probably the biggest factor.
For sure. Well, I thank you so much, Shane, for being on here. And if you guys want to watch, which you have to, right? You have to find out what the positives are. The positives are linked down below. They're also in a pinned comment, so you can easily just click on it. And I'll also have it as a video at the end of this video. So check it out. You heard the negatives, and it's time to hear the positives. And I will admit, like I said in the beginning of the video, there's so much more to be positive about on this phone than negative. Now, last year you can look at it it was missing a lot of things. It fixed and righted those wrongs, I feel like, at least on a paper level for what we've seen. So thanks again. When you go to Shane's channel, make sure you subscribe. He's got a great channel. He covers the Surface Duo, but he also covers Samsung stuff and other devices as well. So check out his channel, subscribe after you watch the video. And thank you again, Shane, so much, guys.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll see you guys down the road.